The aroma of roasted coffee beans and old paper always drew me into the quiet corner cafe. I found my usual spot by the window, a haven from the city's relentless hum. Sipping my Earl Grey, I opened the worn paperback I just bought, a collection of urban essays. Unexpectedly, a folded piece of paper slipped from between its yellowed pages onto the polished wooden table. Curiosity, an archivist's natural inclination, compelled me to pick it up. It was crisp, white graph paper, folded with meticulous precision. The handwriting, stark black ink in an architectural script, immediately caught my eye. As I read, a profound intimacy unfolded, an unsent letter from a man to his grandfather, filled with a raw honesty about his life's path. Back in my quiet apartment, the letter's words resonated deeply. Its author, though anonymous, had articulated a yearning for purpose that echoed my own unspoken thoughts. Despite the inherent privacy of the message, I felt an undeniable urge to respond, a desire to connect with this kindred spirit. I retrieved my cream-colored stationery, the subtle texture comforting beneath my fingertips. The following afternoon, a slight nervousness fluttered within me as I returned to the quiet corner. My heart beat a little faster than usual. I carefully tucked my handwritten reply, penned in dark green ink, back into the well-worn pages of the urban essays. With a hopeful yet hesitant gesture, I placed the book on the cafe's communal free exchange shelf, a silent offering to fate. Later that day, Neil, an urban planner with a perpetually furrowed brow, entered the same cafe. His shoulders slumped slightly, indicative of a demanding workday. He routinely scanned the exchange shelf, a mere habit, not expecting anything. Yet his gaze suddenly sharpened. There, amidst unfamiliar titles, was the distinctive faded cover of a collection of urban essays, the very book he'd left behind weeks ago. A flicker of curiosity, perhaps even a touch of nostalgia, prompted him to pick up the familiar volume. As he opened it, a sheet of cream-colored paper, folded neatly, fell into his hand. His brow furrowed in confusion, then surprise. He unfolded it, revealing elegant cursive in dark green ink. Reading the opening lines, a blush crept onto his cheeks, quickly replaced by an expression of deep fascination. Back in his minimalist apartment, Neil sat at his sleek, uncluttered desk. The letter lay open before him, its unexpected intimacy a stark contrast to his pragmatic world. He felt an inexplicable pull to respond, a desire to engage with this anonymous woman who had somehow understood his unspoken feelings. He reached for his signature crisp white graph paper and a precise black pen, commencing a deliberate, anonymous correspondence. Over the ensuing weeks, the worn paperback became a silent messenger, a conduit for their evolving connection. A subtle montage illustrates the repeated exchanges. Heather's delicate hands placing the book, Neil's strong fingers retrieving it. They never met, their faces always obscured, yet the book passed between them, a growing testament to their burgeoning bond. Each exchange was a quiet promise of another. One afternoon, amidst the hushed whispers of the city archive, I sat at my wooden desk, surrounded by stacks of historical documents. I carefully unfolded one of Neil's letters, written on his distinctive graph paper. A particular observation he made about the city's overlooked beauty, delivered with a dry wit, brought a genuine smile to my lips. His words made the dusty archives feel a little less solitary. Across town, Neil sat on a crowded bus, the cityscape blurring outside the window. Despite the jostle and noise, he was completely absorbed in Heather's latest letter, her elegant cursive a stark contrast to the urban chaos. Her words, full of thoughtful insights, transported him. The world outside faded, irrelevant, as he focused solely on the intimate connection forming through their shared paper trail. Neil's latest letter detailed a charming independent cinema on the city's east side, a place he frequented for its vintage charm and obscure foreign films. He described the worn velvet seats and the faint scent of popcorn, a vivid picture that somehow resonated deeply with me. Unbeknownst to him, I found myself drawn there the very next evening, purchasing a ticket for a quiet showing, a strange sense of unknowing synchronicity settling over me. In my subsequent letter, I waxed poetic about the vibrant farmers market downtown, a kaleidoscope of fresh produce and artisanal goods that always lifted my spirits. It was a place where the city's pulse felt most authentic, a stark contrast to the sterile archives I usually inhabited. The irony, of course, was that while I browsed the sun-drenched stalls on a Saturday, Neil had explored the very same market just days before, our paths narrowly missing each other in the bustling aisles. Our letters, once cautious and reserved, began to blossom with intricate details, each description a brushstroke on a shared canvas. Neil wrote of the precise angles of historic buildings, while I recounted the forgotten stories held within their walls. We were, without realizing it, meticulously painting a portrait of the same beloved city, our perspectives distinct, yet harmoniously converging into a singular, rich narrative. I found myself describing my favorite park bench, a quiet refuge nestled under a grand maple tree overlooking a serene pond. I wrote about the way the afternoon sun, filtering through the leaves, cast dappled patterns on the weathered wood, and the calming ripple of the water. It was a place where the city's ceaseless hum faded into a gentle murmur, a perfect spot for quiet contemplation. Neil read my words, his brow furrowed in concentration as he absorbed each detail of the description. His eyes, deep blue and usually analytical, widened slightly as a look of dawning realization spread across his face. He recognized it instantly. The specific curve of the pond, the distinctive maple, the very bench where he sometimes ate his lunch. An astonished smile touched his lips. Driven by an inexplicable urge, Neil made his way to the park, a quiet hope blossoming in his chest. He approached the familiar bench, scanning the area with anticipation, his gaze lingering on the empty seat. A pang of disappointment, sharp and unexpected, pierced through him when he found it unoccupied. She wasn't there. Nevertheless, a different idea sparked. Before leaving, Neil retrieved his small sketchbook and a pencil from his messenger bag. He began to draw the bench, capturing its weathered charm and the serene view, a quiet gesture of connection. With careful deliberation, he tore out the small sketch and tucked it inside the worn pages of a collection of urban essays, hoping she would find it. Days later, I retrieved the familiar paperback from my mailbox, its faded cover a comforting sight. As I opened it, a small folded piece of paper slipped out, landing gently on my desk. It was a sketch of the park bench, rendered with an architect's precision, yet imbued with a surprising tenderness. I held it gently, deeply moved by the silent, creative gesture, a tangible link between our unseen lives. Our correspondence deepened significantly after that, transcending simple observations to more personal reflections. Neil wrote about his growing dissatisfaction with a new high-rise project at work, a sterile, soulless structure designed without regard for the city's inherent character. He confessed his frustration with the corporate drive for profit over genuine urban development, revealing a vulnerability I hadn't anticipated. I responded thoughtfully, drawing upon my archival work to offer a perspective he might not have considered. I wrote about the profound importance of preserving a city's unique character, its history, and the intangible spirit that makes it a living entity rather than mere concrete and steel. My words aim to be supportive yet wise, validating his concerns while offering a broader context from my own experiences. Neil sat in his corporate office, the glass walls reflecting the city's muted skyline. He unfolded my cream-colored paper, its subtle texture a stark contrast to the sleek, cold surfaces surrounding him. My words, flowing in dark green ink, spoke of the quiet beauty in forgotten city corners, a sentiment that resonated deeply within his analytical mind. He felt a profound sense of understanding, a validation of the disconnect he often felt with his own pragmatic work. My anticipation was a palpable thing as I approached the daily grind, the familiar aroma of coffee already a comfort. However, a stark white sign taped to the glass door stopped me cold. Closed for renovations, reopening in 1 month, it declared in bold, unforgiving letters. My heart sank, a heavy stone dropping into an empty well. The thought of a month without our exchange filled me with dismay. Neil, too, discovered the cafe's abrupt closure. A flicker of panic crossed his face. The thought of losing our connection, however anonymous, was unsettling. He imagined my own disappointment, fearing I might simply give up. Driven by a sudden urgency, he turned from the cafe door and hurried home, his mind already formulating a new message. He had to write, hoping to bridge this unexpected gap. With a surprising surge of determination, Neil managed to persuade the cafe owner to let him leave the book one last time, a small act of desperation. Inside, nestled within its pages, was his urgent letter. He proposed a new drop-off point, a hollow in the ancient oak tree standing majestically near our park bench. It was a resourceful solution, born of his pragmatic nature and a burgeoning hope. Despite my initial disappointment, a sliver of hope compelled me to return to the cafe, just in case. To my utter relief, tucked beneath a loose brick near the door was the used book. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it, finding his familiar, precise handwriting. Reading his ingenious plan for the oak tree hollow, a wave of relief washed over me, and a genuine smile spread across my face. The next day, I walked through the park, the crisp autumn air invigorating. Locating the grand old oak, its branches reaching like ancient arms, I found the small, natural hollow. Carefully, I placed my reply, written on my cream-colored stationery, deep inside. This new method felt incredibly secret, a clandestine exchange that deepened the intimacy of our connection. As I turned from the oak, walking down one of the park's winding paths, Neil approached from another, his gaze fixed on the familiar tree. Unbeknownst to either of us, we passed within mere feet, our shoulders almost brushing. He was focused on retrieving his message, I on the quiet joy of having sent mine. The irony of our near miss hung in the crisp air, a silent, tense moment of missed connection. Neil reached the oak tree, his fingers easily finding the hollow. He retrieved my letter, unaware of the near miss that had just occurred, the proximity of our physical selves. As he read my words, a new conviction settled within him. The connection, fostered through ink and paper, had grown too strong, too meaningful to remain anonymous any longer. It was time for a real encounter. Back in his apartment, Neil sat at his desk, facing the most daunting letter yet. He crumpled several sheets of graph paper, each attempt failing to capture the magnitude of his intention. Finally, with a deep breath, he penned the formal proposal. A meeting at the park bench, Saturday at noon. His hand was steady, yet a nervous tremor ran through him. This was a leap of faith. At home, the familiar sight of Neil's architectural handwriting on the crisp graph paper brought a surge of anticipation. As I read his formal invitation to meet, my hand holding the letter began to tremble ever so slightly. A potent mix of extreme excitement and profound fear coursed through me. The anonymity was ending, and the unknown was thrillingly, terrifyingly close. The morning of our planned meeting arrived, bringing with it a strange mix of excitement and profound apprehension. I found myself meticulously sifting through my wardrobe, discarding outfits as quickly as I tried them on, each choice feeling suddenly inadequate. I imagined Neil, perhaps, doing something similar, checking the forecast repeatedly, his pragmatic nature momentarily overshadowed by an uncharacteristic flutter of nerves. We were both second-guessing this impulsive decision to meet, yet an undeniable pull urged us forward. Saturday dawned, and a soft, persistent rain began to fall, pattering gently against my window pane. I stood there, watching the droplets trace paths down the glass, a wave of doubt washing over me. The thought of staying home, cocooned in my familiar comfort, was incredibly tempting, given the sudden chill in the air and the daunting prospect of meeting a stranger. My heart pounded with a conflict between the desire for connection and the fear of vulnerability. Meanwhile, Neil was already at the park bench, precisely as we had agreed. He sat beneath a large black umbrella, its canopy a dark dome against the muted green of the park. His fingers absently traced the worn cover of the original used book, a tangible link to our shared correspondence. He looked around anxiously, his deep blue eyes scanning the paths, a silent question in his gaze. Would she truly come? Clutching my own umbrella, I finally entered the park, the scent of wet earth and damp leaves filling the air. Through the misty rain, I spotted him, a lone figure on the park bench, unmistakable even from a distance. My steps faltered, a sudden surge of adrenaline making my breath catch in my throat. It was him, the man behind the precise script and thoughtful words, and in that moment, fear and hope collided powerfully within me. Taking a deep, shaky breath, I forced myself to continue, my resolve hardening despite the tremor in my hands. Each step felt deliberate, a conscious act of courage. The only sounds were the gentle patter of rain on my umbrella and the soft, rhythmic crunch of my shoes on the wet gravel path. The world seemed to narrow, all focus drawn to the approaching bench and the man who waited there. As I drew closer, Neil looked up, his gaze lifting from the book. Our eyes met across the short distance, and in that instant, the world seemed to hold its breath. There was no dramatic shock or sudden revelation, but rather a quiet, profound sense of recognition, as if we had always known each other, simply waiting for this moment to materialize. It felt like coming home. A small, genuine smile, full of relief and warmth, slowly spread across Neil's face. He gently lifted the used book, holding it up slightly, a silent confirmation of our shared journey. His voice, deeper and softer than I had imagined, broke the quiet. "I was hoping you'd come," he said, his words carrying a simple, heartfelt sincerity that instantly put me at ease. My own smile mirrored his, the last vestiges of nervousness melting away like snow in the sun. It was as if a heavy weight I hadn't realized I was carrying had suddenly lifted. "I'm Heather," I replied, my voice steady now, filled with a newfound lightness. Neil's eyes crinkled at the corners as he responded, "Neil, it's so good to finally meet you." The simple exchange of names felt profound, solidifying our connection beyond the written word. With a natural, unhesitating gesture, Neil shifted on the bench, making ample space for me under the generous span of his large umbrella. I closed my own umbrella, the soft click echoing slightly in the quiet park, and sat down beside him. The shared shelter felt instantly intimate, a small, warm bubble against the cool, damp air. It was a comfortable silence, filled with the unspoken understanding of a journey completed and a new one just beginning. The final shot showed us sitting together, side by side, the rain falling steadily around our shared umbrella. We were deep in conversation, our voices a low murmur against the gentle patter. The used book rested quietly between us on the bench, its faded cover a testament to the journey that had brought us here. It was more than just a book. It was the bridge we had now successfully crossed, leading us from words on a page to a tangible, promising connection.
Es momento de la trivia. Te haré 2 preguntas sobre la historia que acabas de escuchar. Piensa bien las respuestas y déjalas en los comentarios. Pregunta número 1. ¿De qué color era la tinta que Heather usaba para escribir sus cartas a Neil? Tómate tu tiempo para pensar. Pregunta número 2. ¿Qué motivó a Neil a decidir que era el momento de proponer un encuentro en persona con Heather? Esas son las 2 preguntas de nuestra trivia. No olvides dejar tus respuestas en los comentarios. Me encanta leer lo que piensan sobre las historias.
Si te gustó el video, pon me gusta, suscríbete y activa la campanita para ver más historias.